Good evening and welcome to Myths for Sleep. I'm James, and tonight we'll journey into the mystical realm of Hécate, the triple goddess of magic, crossroads, and transformation. Discover how this ancient deity guides souls through life's most profound transitions, protects those who walk between worlds, and serves as the eternal guardian of sacred mysteries. If this story guides you toward peaceful slumber, please like this video and let me know in the comments what mythological tale you'd like to hear next. Your support helps me create more soothing stories for your restful nights. Settle in comfortably and let yourself drift away with the timeless wisdom of the goddess of magic. In the primordial darkness before the world knew form or substance, when the cosmos existed as pure potential waiting to be born, there stirred a power unlike any other. This was not the gentle darkness of peaceful sleep, nor the harsh void of nothingness, but something far more profound. It was the sacred darkness of the womb, pregnant with infinite possibilities and ancient mysteries that would shape the destiny of gods and mortals alike. From this primordial essence emerged Hécate, whose very name whispers of far-shooting arrows and distant magic. She was not born as other deities were born, through union of established powers, but crystallized directly from the fundamental forces that govern transformation, boundaries, and the liminal spaces where one reality touches another. Her birth was witnessed by no one, for she arrived at the moment when witnessing itself became possible. The ancient poets tell us that Hécate held a unique position among all divine beings, for Zeus himself, the king of gods, honored her above all others. He granted her dominion over earth, sea, and sky, making her perhaps the only deity to hold sway over all three realms of existence. This unprecedented power was not given lightly, but recognized as something that had always been hers by right of her essential nature. From her earliest moments of consciousness, Hécate understood that she existed at the crossroads of all things. She was the goddess of boundaries, not because she created them, but because she embodied the sacred truth that every boundary is also a bridge. Where others saw separation, she saw connection. Where others feared the unknown, she recognized the eternal dance of transformation that makes all life possible. Her triple nature manifested as naturally as breathing manifests in mortals. As the new moon, she ruled over beginnings, potential, and the hidden seeds of future growth. As the full moon, she governed culmination, power, and the moment when hidden forces reach their peak expression. As the dark moon, she presided over endings, transformation, and the sacred process of letting go that makes new beginnings possible. The goddess quickly discovered that her influence extended far beyond the celestial realm. Mortals, in their brief lives, instinctively recognized her presence at the crucial moments of transition. She walked with women through the mysteries of childbirth, guiding new souls from the spirit realm into physical form. She stood beside the dying as they released their earthly forms, ensuring their safe passage to whatever awaited beyond the veil of death. But perhaps most significantly, Hécate became the patron of those who worked with the hidden forces of nature. Healers called upon her when preparing medicines from herbs that grew in moonlight. Midwives invoked her protection during difficult births. Those who sought wisdom through divination felt her presence guiding their understanding of signs and omens that revealed the patterns underlying apparent chaos. The goddess established her primary dwelling at the crossroads, those liminal spaces where multiple paths converge and travelers must choose their direction. These intersections became sacred to her, not because they were places of confusion, but because they represented the eternal human experience of standing at the threshold between what was and what could be. Every choice, she understood, was an act of magic that shaped reality itself. Her appearance to mortals varied according to their needs and their capacity to understand her nature. Sometimes she manifested as a beautiful young woman carrying torches that illuminated hidden paths through darkness. Other times she appeared as a mature woman of undeniable authority, holding keys that could unlock any door or secret. In her darker aspect, she might manifest as an ancient crone whose weathered hands held the wisdom of countless transformations. Hécate's retinue reflected the mysterious nature of her domain. Sacred dogs accompanied her nocturnal journeys, their loyalty and keen senses making them perfect companions for one who navigated the boundaries between worlds. These creatures could see spirits invisible to human eyes and howled warnings when dangerous supernatural forces threatened the innocent. Their presence announced her approach to those who knew how to interpret their calls. The red mullet fish became sacred to her as a symbol of her dominion over the sea's mysteries. Sailors would offer these fish at her shrines, seeking her protection during voyages that took them beyond familiar shores into waters where anything might happen. Her favor could calm storms or reveal safe harbors hidden behind deceptive mists. Her displeasure could strand vessels in doldrums or lead them into treacherous currents from which few returned. As protector of households, Hécate watched over the domestic mysteries that sustained daily life. She blessed the threshold of homes, creating invisible barriers that prevented harmful influences from entering while welcoming beneficial energies. Families would leave food offerings at their doorways, not from fear, but from gratitude for her constant protection of their most intimate spaces. As the goddess of magic, Hécate became the teacher of those mortals who sought to understand the hidden laws governing existence. Magic, in her understanding, was not the violation of natural law, but the application of deeper principles that most minds could not perceive. She taught that every herb, every stone, every phase of the moon carried specific energies that could be harmonized with human intention to create beneficial change. The goddess established sacred groves where her mysteries could be taught to worthy initiates. These woodland sanctuaries existed at the boundaries between cultivated lands and wild forests, symbolizing the liminal space between known and unknown knowledge. Ancient oak trees formed natural cathedrals, where moonlight filtered through leaves to create patterns of light and shadow that revealed deeper truths about the nature of reality. Hécate's first students were women who had experienced profound transitions in their lives. Mothers who had lost children learned to channel their grief into healing wisdom that could comfort others facing similar losses. Women who had survived dangerous illnesses discovered that their brush with death had opened their perception to spiritual forces normally invisible to healthy mortals. Elderly women found that their accumulated life experience had prepared them to serve as bridges between the worlds of the living and the dead. The art of herbalism flourished under Hécate's guidance. She taught her followers to recognize which plants gathered strength from moonlight and which drew power from shadow. Herbs collected at crossroads possessed special potency because they absorbed the concentrated energy of decision and change that saturated these locations. Plants that grew in graveyards carried the wisdom of those who had completed their earthly journeys and transformed into new forms of existence. Knowledge of timing became crucial to Hécate's magical practices. The dark moon was ideal for banishing harmful influences and releasing attachments that no longer served growth. The new moon supported new beginnings and the planting of intentions that would grow throughout the lunar cycle. The full moon provided maximum power for healing, divination, and any work that required the complete manifestation of hidden potentials. The goddess taught that true magic always served the greater good, even when its methods seemed mysterious or frightening to those who did not understand. A healing that required the temporary worsening of symptoms as the body expelled toxins might appear harmful to observers, but Hécate's followers learned to trust the deeper wisdom that guided such processes. Sometimes the most compassionate action was to allow natural consequences to unfold, rather than interfering with lessons that souls needed to learn. Divination under Hécate's patronage took many forms, each suited to different questions and different temperaments. Some practitioners learned to read the patterns formed by oil drops floating on water, interpreting their shapes as messages about hidden influences affecting current situations. Others studied the behavior of animals, understanding that creatures more sensitive to spiritual energies often provided warnings or guidance about future events. The practice of necromancy, communication with the spirits of the dead, required Hécate's special protection and guidance. She taught that the dead were not gone, but transformed, existing in a state that made communication possible under the right conditions. However, such contact required profound respect and clear purpose. Disturbing the dead for trivial reasons or personal gain could bring serious consequences, while approaching them with genuine need for healing or closure could provide profound benefits for both the living and the departed. Hécate's role as psychopomp, guide of souls, became evident in her work with those approaching death. She would appear to dying mortals in dreams, preparing them for the transition they were about to make. Her presence brought comfort to those who feared the unknown, showing them that death was not an ending but a doorway to new forms of existence. She helped souls release their attachment to physical form and embrace the expansion of consciousness that awaited them. The goddess also guided souls who had become lost between worlds, trapped by confusion, fear, or excessive attachment to their former lives. These spirits, unable to move forward in their cosmic journey, often caused disturbances in the physical realm as they desperately tried to maintain connections that were no longer appropriate. Hécate's intervention could free such souls, allowing them to find peace while protecting the living from harmful spiritual influences. Her protection extended to those who worked in professions that brought them into contact with death and transformation. Midwives invoked her aid during difficult births, seeking her power to guide new souls safely into physical incarnation. Physicians called upon her when treating patients whose conditions defied conventional understanding, trusting her deeper knowledge of the forces affecting health and illness. Funeral priests and priestesses served under her special protection, helping families navigate the complex emotions and spiritual challenges that arose when loved ones died. She taught them rituals that honored the deceased while supporting the grieving process of survivors. These ceremonies created sacred spaces where the boundary between life and death became permeable, allowing final communications and the peaceful resolution of unfinished emotional business. The lunar festivals dedicated to Hécate brought communities together to honor the cycles of transformation that governed all existence. During these celebrations, people shared stories of challenges they had overcome, recognizing that their personal struggles were part of the eternal pattern of death and rebirth that made growth possible. They offered gratitude for the difficulties that had taught them wisdom and strength they could not have gained through easy circumstances. Through all her work, Hécate maintained her essential nature as a goddess of empowerment rather than dependence. She taught her followers to develop their own intuitive abilities rather than relying exclusively on external guidance. Her goal was not to create permanent students, but to awaken the divine spark that existed within every soul, enabling mortals to navigate their own transformations with wisdom and courage. Among all the Olympian deities, Hécate held a position of unique respect and autonomy that reflected her ancient origins and fundamental importance to the cosmic order. Zeus, despite his reputation for jealously guarding divine authority, recognized in Hécate a power that predated and transcended the political structures of Olympus. Her dominion over the three realms of existence made her an essential ally rather than a potential rival, for her work maintained the very foundations upon which all other divine activities depended. The relationship between Hécate and Zeus exemplified mutual respect between equals rather than the hierarchical dynamics that characterized most divine interactions. When the king of gods needed guidance about matters involving fate, transformation, or the deeper mysteries of existence, he consulted Hécate as a peer whose wisdom complemented his own authority. She advised him on decisions that would affect the boundary between divine and mortal realms, ensuring that necessary changes occurred without disrupting the fundamental stability of the cosmic order. Artemis, the virgin huntress, shared a particularly close bond with Hécate that reflected their common association with the moon and the protection of women. While Artemis embodied the moon's bright, active aspects through her association with the hunt and wild nature, Hécate represented its darker, more mysterious phases. Together, they formed a complementary partnership that honored the complete lunar cycle and its influence on feminine mysteries, fertility, and the rhythms of natural transformation. The two goddesses often worked together in protecting women during childbirth, with Artemis providing the strength and courage needed for the physical ordeal, while Hécate guided the spiritual aspects of bringing new souls into incarnation. Their combined influence ensured that mothers received both the practical assistance they needed and the deeper spiritual support required for such a profound transformation. Persephone, queen of the underworld, developed a relationship with Hécate that illustrated the goddess's role as guide and protector during life's most challenging transitions. When Persephone was abducted by Hades and taken to the realm of the dead, it was Hécate who searched for her with torches blazing, illuminating dark places where others feared to venture. Her persistence in seeking the lost maiden demonstrated her commitment to those who found themselves trapped in circumstances beyond their control. After Persephone's return and her establishment as queen of the underworld for part of each year, Hécate became her trusted advisor and companion. The older goddess helped Persephone understand her dual role as both maiden of spring and sovereign of the dead, teaching her to navigate the complex emotional and spiritual challenges of existing simultaneously in two very different realms of experience. This relationship revealed Hécate's genius for helping others integrate seemingly contradictory aspects of their nature. She understood that growth often required the ability to hold multiple truths simultaneously, to find wholeness not through choosing one side over another, but through embracing the creative tension between apparent opposites. Her guidance helped Persephone transform what could have been a source of eternal conflict into a wellspring of wisdom and power. Hécate's interactions with Demeter, Persephone's mother and goddess of agriculture, demonstrated her skill at facilitating healing and reconciliation after profound trauma. Demeter's grief over her daughter's abduction had caused the earth to become barren, threatening the survival of all mortal life. Hécate served as mediator between the grief-stricken mother and the other gods, helping to negotiate the arrangement that allowed Persephone to spend part of each year in both realms. The goddess understood that Demeter's anger, while destructive in its immediate effects, arose from a profound love that demanded respect and acknowledgement. Rather than simply trying to placate the agricultural goddess or dismiss her concerns, Hécate helped create a solution that honored both Demeter's maternal bond and the cosmic necessities that had led to Persephone's transformation into an underworld queen. Hécate's relationship with Apollo, god of light, music, and prophecy, revealed her ability to work harmoniously with deities whose natures seemed directly opposed to her own. Where Apollo represented the clarity of daylight consciousness and rational understanding, Hécate embodied the wisdom found in darkness, dreams, and intuitive knowledge. Yet rather than creating conflict, these differences proved complementary, with each deity providing what the other could not offer. Apollo's oracles often received their prophetic visions during states of altered consciousness that bridged the gap between his solar domain and Hécate's lunar mysteries. The goddess would guide these seers through the disorienting process of receiving divine revelation, helping them interpret symbolic visions and translate mystical experiences into practical guidance for those who sought prophetic counsel. The collaboration between Hécate and Hermes, messenger of the gods and guide of souls, illustrated how different aspects of divine guidance could work together seamlessly. While Hermes specialized in communication and the swift movement of information between realms, Hécate focused on the deeper transformational processes that such communications initiated. Hermes might deliver a message that sparked change, but Hécate guided the recipient through the often lengthy and complex process of integrating new understanding into their life. Their joint work in guiding souls between realms demonstrated the collaborative nature of divine assistance. Hermes would escort souls to the boundaries between worlds, but Hécate provided the deeper spiritual preparation needed for such transitions. Her influence helped souls release attachments that would hinder their journey, while cultivating the courage and wisdom needed to embrace new forms of existence. Even with Hades, lord of the underworld and ruler of the dead, Hécate maintained a relationship based on mutual respect and shared responsibility. Her frequent presence in his realm as guide and protector of souls required his cooperation, while her ability to navigate the complex spiritual dynamics of death and transformation made her an invaluable ally in maintaining the proper functioning of the afterlife. Hécate helped establish the protocols and procedures that ensured souls received appropriate guidance and placement in the various regions of the underworld, based on their earthly lives and spiritual development. Her wisdom prevented the confusion and chaos that might otherwise result from the constant arrival of souls unprepared for their new existence, while her compassion ensured that even the most troubled spirits received opportunities for growth and eventual transformation. Through all these divine relationships, Hécate maintained her essential independence and unique perspective. She collaborated readily with other deities when their goals aligned with her own commitment to facilitating beneficial transformation. But she never subordinated her ancient wisdom to newer divine politics or compromised her fundamental principles for the sake of temporary alliances. Throughout her eternal existence, Hécate faced challenges that tested not only her power, but her wisdom and compassion in ways that shaped her into the profound teacher and guide she became. Unlike many deities whose trials came from external conflicts or power struggles, Hécate's greatest tests emerged from the very nature of her work with transformation, death, and the shadowy aspects of existence that others preferred to avoid. One of her most significant challenges arose from mortals who misunderstood the nature of her magic and sought to use her power for selfish or harmful purposes. These practitioners, driven by fear, greed, or desire for revenge, attempted to invoke her aid in cursing enemies, manipulating others against their will, or gaining unfair advantages over their fellow humans. Such requests fundamentally violated the principles of transformation and growth that Hécate represented. The goddess faced a delicate balance in responding to such appeals. Simply ignoring them might leave vulnerable people without protection against genuine threats, while granting them could corrupt her sacred work and encourage further misuse of magical principles. Hécate developed a sophisticated approach that honored both justice and compassion, ensuring that consequences flowed naturally from actions without adding unnecessary suffering to an already complex world. When someone sought her aid in harming another, Hécate would instead illuminate the deeper patterns underlying their conflict. A person requesting revenge against a betraying lover might receive dreams that revealed their own contribution to the relationship's failure, opening possibilities for growth and healing rather than perpetuating cycles of mutual harm. Someone seeking magical assistance in gaining unfair advantage might find themselves facing situations that tested their character and revealed better paths to achieving their legitimate goals. The goddess learned to recognize the difference between requests motivated by genuine need for protection or justice and those arising from wounded pride or selfish ambition. Her responses demonstrated that true magical power lay not in forcing outcomes, but in aligning with the deeper currents of transformation that guided all existence toward greater wisdom and compassion. Another profound challenge came from Hécate's work with souls who had become lost or confused during their transition from life to death. Some spirits, traumatized by sudden or violent death, remained anchored to the physical world through fear or unfinished emotional business. Others, overwhelmed by the expansion of consciousness that followed death, retreated into confusion or denial, rather than embracing their new state of existence. These lost souls often created disturbances in the mortal realm as they desperately tried to maintain connections that were no longer appropriate or beneficial. Their presence could drain energy from living beings, create unexplained phenomena that frightened communities, or influence sensitive individuals in ways that disrupted normal psychological and spiritual development. Yet Hécate understood that forcibly removing such spirits would only increase their trauma and confusion. Instead, she developed patient techniques for helping lost souls understand their situation and find the courage to continue their cosmic journey. She would appear to them in forms that felt familiar and safe, gradually introducing concepts that helped them process their death and accept their new existence. Her work required infinite compassion and skill, as each soul carried unique fears and attachments that needed individual attention and care. The process often involved helping spirits resolve unfinished emotional business with living family members or friends. Hécate would facilitate dreams or other subtle communications that allowed for forgiveness, expressions of love, or the sharing of important information that the deceased had not been able to convey before their death. These interventions brought healing to both the living and the dead, freeing souls to continue their development while providing closure to grieving survivors. Hécate also faced the challenge of working with mortal practitioners who became intoxicated by their growing magical abilities and lost sight of the ethical principles that should guide such work. Power, even when used for beneficial purposes, could become addictive, leading practitioners to seek increasingly dramatic results rather than focusing on the subtle, long-term transformations that created lasting positive change. The goddess had to learn when to withdraw her support from such practitioners, allowing them to experience the natural consequences of their choices while ensuring that innocent people did not suffer from magical workings that had become divorced from wisdom and compassion. This required her to develop discernment about when temporary setbacks would serve a practitioner's long-term spiritual development and when intervention was necessary to prevent serious harm. Her approach emphasized teaching rather than punishment, helping fallen practitioners understand how their attitudes and motivations had led them astray. Many who experienced such correction eventually became some of her most effective teachers. Their personal experience with the dangers of misused power, making them particularly skilled at guiding others away from similar pitfalls. The goddess also confronted the challenge of maintaining balance between her roles as teacher of hidden wisdom and protector of the innocent from dangerous knowledge. Some magical techniques, while potentially beneficial in skilled hands, could cause tremendous harm if practiced by those who lacked proper preparation or ethical grounding. Hécate had to develop criteria for determining who was ready for advanced teachings and who needed more foundational work. This led to the establishment of her mystery schools, where seekers underwent gradual initiation into increasingly sophisticated magical practices. The process required not only the development of technical skills, but the cultivation of wisdom, compassion, and humility that would prevent the misuse of powerful techniques. Students who attempted to advance too quickly or who showed signs of ego inflation would find their progress naturally slowed until they developed the character necessary to handle greater responsibilities. Through all these challenges, Hécate learned that her greatest power lay not in her ability to manifest dramatic magical effects, but in her capacity to facilitate the growth of wisdom and compassion in others. Her work succeeded not when she solved problems for people, but when she helped them develop the insight and strength needed to solve their own problems while contributing to the welfare of their communities. The trials she faced taught her that true spiritual authority came from service rather than domination, from empowerment of others rather than accumulation of personal power. This understanding transformed her into a goddess whose influence grew not through fear or dependence, but through the genuine gratitude of those whose lives had been enriched by her guidance. As civilizations developed and social structures became more rigid, Hécate naturally evolved into the patron and protector of those who existed at the margins of conventional society. Her affinity for boundaries and liminal spaces made her particularly sensitive to the experiences of people who did not fit neatly into established categories, or who possessed gifts that mainstream culture found threatening or incomprehensible. Women who lived alone, whether by choice or circumstance, often found themselves under Hécate's special protection. In societies that defined women primarily through their relationships to male relatives, those who remained unmarried, who had outlived their families, or who had chosen paths of independence faced suspicion and sometimes persecution. The goddess provided both practical assistance and spiritual strength to these women, helping them navigate the challenges of autonomy while honoring their right to self-determination. Many of these solitary women became Hécate's priestesses and practitioners, developing skills in herbalism, midwifery, and healing that made them valuable to their communities despite social prejudices. The goddess taught them to find power in their outsider status, showing them how their freedom from conventional roles allowed them to serve as bridges between different social groups and to speak truths that others could not or would not voice. Healers and midwives, regardless of their social status, worked under Hécate's particular protection because their professions required them to deal regularly with the mysteries of life, death, and transformation. These practitioners often possessed intuitive abilities that enabled them to sense subtle energies and spiritual influences affecting their patients' conditions. Their work took them into liminal spaces where physical and spiritual healing intersected, making them natural allies of the goddess of boundaries and transformation. The goddess provided these healers with enhanced perception that allowed them to diagnose conditions that conventional medicine could not address. They learned to recognize when illness stemmed from spiritual imbalances, unresolved emotional trauma, or negative influences that required more than purely physical treatment. Their expanded awareness made them more effective healers while also marking them as different from their peers in ways that could attract both reverence and suspicion. Travelers, merchants, and others whose work took them frequently across geographical and cultural boundaries also found themselves under Hécate's protection. These individuals faced unique challenges as they navigated between different customs, languages, and belief systems, requiring flexibility and adaptability that not everyone possessed. The goddess helped them develop the skills needed to communicate across cultural divides and to find common ground with people whose backgrounds differed dramatically from their own. Her influence enabled these cultural bridges to serve as agents of positive change, carrying beneficial ideas and practices from one community to another. while respecting the integrity of different traditions. They learned to distinguish between customs that served essential spiritual or social functions and those that might be modified or improved through contact with different approaches. Their work contributed to the gradual evolution of human consciousness through peaceful cultural exchange rather than conquest or domination. Orphans and others who lacked family protection received Hecate's special attention because their vulnerable status made them susceptible to exploitation and abuse. The goddess would guide such individuals toward protective relationships with surrogate family members, mentors, or communities that could provide the support and guidance they needed to develop their potential. Her interventions often appeared as fortunate coincidences or unexpected opportunities that changed the trajectory of otherwise difficult lives. Many of these protected individuals developed unusual resilience and independence as they learned to navigate the world without the advantages that stable family relationships typically provided. Their experiences taught them empathy for others facing similar challenges and often led them to careers in helping professions where they could use their hard-won wisdom to assist others in similar situations. The goddess also extended her protection to those whose sexual or emotional nature did not conform to social expectations. In cultures that rigidly defined acceptable forms of love and partnership, individuals who experienced attraction differently or who felt called to alternative family structures often faced rejection, violence, or forced participation in relationships that violated their authentic nature. Hécate provided these individuals with the inner strength needed to remain true to their essential selves, despite external pressure to conform. She helped them find communities of like-minded souls, where they could experience acceptance and love, and she protected them from the worst consequences of social prejudice through subtle influences that deflected persecution or opened unexpected paths to safety and fulfillment. Her work with marginalized sexual minorities revealed her understanding that love and attraction operated according to deeper spiritual principles that transcended conventional social categories. She recognized that souls incarnated with various purposes and challenges that might require non-traditional approaches to relationships and family formation, and she honored these differences as part of the rich diversity of human experience, rather than as deviations from proper behavior. Artists, poets, musicians, and other creative individuals found in Hécate a patron who understood the challenges of bringing new forms of beauty and truth into the world. Creative work often required artists to access non-ordinary states of consciousness and to challenge established ways of seeing and understanding reality. This made them natural allies of the goddess of magic and transformation, but it also sometimes put them at odds with conservative social forces that preferred familiar forms of expression. Hécate protected creative individuals from the persecution that innovative work sometimes attracted, while also helping them develop the discipline and discernment needed to channel their inspiration effectively. She taught them to distinguish between genuine creative vision and mere rebelliousness, ensuring that their work served higher purposes rather than simply shocking or disturbing their audiences without offering constructive alternatives. The goddess showed particular favor to artists whose work addressed themes of transformation, mystery, and the deeper truths about human nature that conventional discourse often avoided. Their creations served as vehicles for transmitting Hécate's teachings to broader audiences, embedding wisdom about change, growth, and the integration of shadow aspects within forms of beauty that made difficult truths more accessible and acceptable. Through her protection of all these marginalized groups, Hécate demonstrated that social outcasts often possessed gifts and perspectives essential to the healthy functioning of their communities. Their position at the boundaries of conventional society gave them unique insights into both the strengths and limitations of established ways of life, making them valuable sources of innovation and positive change when their contributions were recognized and valued. Her work revealed that true social health required the inclusion and honor of diverse perspectives, rather than the enforcement of rigid conformity that stifled growth and adaptation. The marginalized individuals she protected often became agents of beneficial transformation, using their outsider perspectives to identify problems and solutions that those more embedded in conventional structures could not see. As ages passed and human civilizations evolved through countless transformations, Hécate's teachings adapted to meet the changing needs of each generation, while maintaining their essential wisdom about the nature of change, growth, and spiritual development. Her instruction transcended specific cultural forms and religious practices, focusing instead on universal principles that could be applied regardless of the particular circumstances in which individuals found themselves. The goddess's primary teaching concerned the sacred nature of transitions and the attitude required to navigate them successfully. She revealed that every significant change in life, whether chosen or imposed by circumstances, offered opportunities for growth that could not be gained through any other means. The key to benefiting from transitional periods lay not in resisting change or trying to return to previous conditions, but in embracing the uncertainty and potential that such times provided. Hécate taught that fear of the unknown was natural and should be acknowledged rather than denied or suppressed. However, she showed her students how to transform fear from a paralyzing force into a source of heightened awareness and energy that could fuel positive action. Fear, properly understood, served as an indicator of significance rather than danger, alerting individuals to situations that carried genuine potential for meaningful transformation. Her instruction in this area involved practical techniques for managing anxiety and uncertainty, while remaining open to new possibilities. Students learned breathing practices that calmed the nervous system during stressful transitions, visualization techniques that helped them imagine positive outcomes for current challenges, and meditation methods that connected them with their inner sources of wisdom and strength during times when external support might be limited. The goddess emphasized the importance of developing trust in the fundamental intelligence that guided all existence. This did not mean passive resignation to whatever happened, but rather active cooperation with the deeper patterns of growth and development that operated beneath surface appearances. Students learned to distinguish between their personal preferences and the larger purposes that their lives served, finding ways to honor both without creating unnecessary conflict. Hécate's teachings about death and dying provided profound comfort and practical guidance for one of life's most challenging transitions. She revealed that death was not an ending, but a graduation from one form of existence to another, comparable to the way a butterfly emerges from the limitations of caterpillar life. The process might involve temporary discomfort and disorientation, but it ultimately led to expanded awareness and new capacities for growth and service. Her instruction prepared individuals for their own eventual death, while also helping them support others who were approaching this transition. Students learned to recognize the signs that indicated when someone was beginning their departure from physical existence, and they developed skills for providing appropriate comfort and assistance during this sacred process. They understood that the quality of attention and love present during someone's dying could significantly influence their experience of transition. The goddess taught that grief, while painful, served essential functions in integrating the reality of loss and honoring the significance of relationships that death had ended. Her students learned to support grieving individuals without trying to rush them through their process or minimize their pain, understanding that authentic mourning required time and space to unfold naturally. They also learned to distinguish between healthy grief that gradually evolved toward acceptance and complicated grief that became stuck in patterns that prevented healing. Hécate's instruction about magical practice emphasized ethics and responsibility rather than the accumulation of supernatural powers. She taught that true magic involved aligning personal will with cosmic purposes in ways that serve the highest good of all involved. Students learned to examine their motivations carefully before undertaking any magical work, ensuring that their goals arose from genuine wisdom and compassion rather than fear, ego, or desire for personal advantage. Her magical curriculum included extensive training in discernment and judgment, as students needed to develop the ability to distinguish between beneficial and harmful influences in both visible and invisible realms. They learned to recognize signs of negative spiritual activity and to protect themselves and others from such influences without becoming paranoid or defensive. This training emphasized that spiritual protection came primarily from maintaining clear intentions and ethical behavior, rather than from defensive techniques alone. The goddess taught her students to work with natural cycles and energies, rather than trying to impose their will through force or manipulation. They learned to recognize the optimal timing for different types of activities, understanding that cooperation with natural rhythms produced more effective and harmonious results than attempts to override such patterns. This instruction connected magical practice with ecological awareness and respect for the natural world. Hécate's teachings about relationships emphasized the importance of honoring both individual authenticity and mutual commitment. She showed students how to maintain their personal integrity while also creating bonds with others that supported everyone's growth and well-being. Her instruction addressed the challenges of balancing independence with interdependence, helping students avoid both excessive self-centeredness and unhealthy dependence on others. Her guidance about family relationships acknowledged the complex dynamics that could either support or hinder individual development. Students learned to honor family ties while also maintaining appropriate boundaries that protected their own growth and well-being. They developed skills for dealing with family members whose attitudes or behaviors created obstacles to their spiritual development, finding ways to maintain love and respect while also protecting their own progress. The goddess's teachings about community involvement emphasized service and contribution, while avoiding the burnout and resentment that could result from overcommitment to others' needs. Students learned to identify their unique gifts and talents, and to find ways of sharing these abilities that felt fulfilling rather than draining. They understood that effective service required maintaining their own well-being and continuing their personal growth rather than sacrificing themselves for others. Hécate taught that spiritual development was not a solitary pursuit, but required community support and accountability. Her students learned to seek out relationships with others who shared their commitment to growth and wisdom, creating networks of mutual support that could sustain them through difficulties and celebrate their achievements. They understood that teaching and learning were reciprocal processes, with everyone having something valuable to contribute regardless of their level of formal training. Her instruction emphasized the importance of integrating spiritual insights into daily life, rather than keeping mystical experiences separate from practical concerns. Students learn to apply their growing wisdom to ordinary challenges like work relationships, financial management, and health concerns, finding ways to bring spiritual principles into every aspect of their existence. Through all her teaching, Hécate demonstrated that wisdom was not a destination, but an ongoing process of growth and discovery that continued throughout all phases of existence. Her students learned to embrace the role of eternal student, remaining open to new insights and experiences, regardless of how much they had already learned or achieved. In the eternal present where all moments exist simultaneously, Hécate continues her timeless work as guardian of thresholds, guide of souls, and teacher of transformation. Her presence remains as vital to the functioning of existence as it was in the earliest days of creation, for the processes she oversees operate according to cosmic laws that transcend the rise and fall of particular civilizations or the changing fashions of human belief. The goddess has learned that her service to humanity extends far beyond the obvious manifestations of her work with magic, death, and transition. Every act of courage in the face of uncertainty, every choice to embrace growth rather than stagnation, every decision to help others navigate their own challenges reflects her influence and honors the principles she embodies. Her teachings have become woven into the fabric of human consciousness, guiding individuals who may never consciously acknowledge her presence, but who nonetheless benefit from her wisdom. Through countless ages of observation and interaction with mortals, Hécate has developed profound appreciation for the resilience and creativity of human spirits. She has watched individuals transform devastating losses into sources of strength and compassion, seen communities emerge stronger from collective tragedies, and witnessed the gradual evolution of consciousness toward greater wisdom and understanding. These observations have confirmed her faith in the fundamental goodness and potential that exists within all beings. The goddess understands that her role as protector and guide will never be complete, because growth and change are eternal processes rather than temporary phases. Each generation faces new challenges that require fresh applications of ancient wisdom, and each individual must discover for themselves the truths that cannot be simply transmitted through words or concepts, but must be lived and experienced to be truly understood. Hécate takes particular satisfaction in observing how the principles she teaches manifest in unexpected ways as human consciousness evolves. Modern practices like psychotherapy and counseling reflect her ancient work of helping souls process difficult experiences and integrate them into coherent narratives of growth and meaning. Hospice care embodies her compassionate approach to supporting individuals through the transition of death with dignity and love. The contemporary understanding of trauma and healing demonstrates growing recognition of the wisdom she has always taught about the necessity of acknowledging and working through painful experiences rather than avoiding or suppressing them. Mental health practices increasingly emphasize the importance of finding meaning in suffering and using difficult experiences as catalysts for positive change, approaches that align perfectly with her ancient teachings about transformation and growth. Environmental movements reflect her understanding of the interconnectedness of all existence and the importance of honoring natural cycles and boundaries. The growing awareness that human well-being depends on the health of ecosystems echoes her teaching that individual and collective welfare are inseparable, and that wisdom requires understanding one's place within larger patterns of relationship and responsibility. Advances in understanding consciousness and the nature of reality have begun to validate insights that Hécate's followers have maintained for millennia. Scientific exploration of near-death experiences, consciousness during clinical death, and the apparent continuity of awareness beyond physical life provides empirical support for her teachings about the eternal nature of the soul and the reality of existence beyond material form. The goddess observes with interest how human understanding of gender, sexuality, and family structures continues to evolve toward greater acceptance of diversity and non-traditional expressions of love and partnership. These developments reflect her ancient protection of those who did not fit conventional categories, and her recognition that authentic love and commitment can take many different forms, all equally valid when based on mutual respect and genuine care. Her influence can be seen in the growing appreciation for indigenous wisdom traditions and alternative healing approaches that acknowledge spiritual and energetic dimensions of health and well-being. The integration of such approaches with conventional medicine demonstrates the kind of boundary-crossing synthesis that Hécate has always encouraged, honoring the valuable contributions of different traditions while avoiding the rigid thinking that rejects unfamiliar ideas without proper investigation. The goddess continues to work directly with individuals who consciously seek her guidance, appearing in dreams, meditations, and moments of crisis to offer the support and wisdom needed for navigating difficult transitions. Her methods remain subtle and respectful of human free will, providing guidance and protection while encouraging the development of personal strength and wisdom rather than creating dependence on external authority. She takes special pleasure in supporting those who dedicate their lives to serving others during times of transition and transformation. Hospice workers, grief counselors, midwives, therapists, and others who help people navigate life's most challenging passages often find themselves blessed with enhanced intuition and resilience that enables them to provide more effective assistance than their training alone would suggest. Hécate's protection extends to those who work to preserve and transmit ancient wisdom traditions while adapting them for contemporary needs. Scholars, practitioners, and teachers who study mythology, spirituality, and traditional healing systems often discover that their research leads them to practical insights that enrich their own lives while enabling them to share valuable knowledge with others, seeking meaning and guidance. The goddess understands that her ultimate purpose transcends even the considerable scope of her current activities. She serves as a bridge between the realm of eternal principles and the world of temporal experience, helping to ensure that cosmic wisdom finds expression through individual lives and collective human development. her work facilitates the gradual awakening of human consciousness to its divine nature and infinite potential. Through her eternal service, Hécate demonstrates that the divine nature expresses itself most fully through humble dedication to the welfare of others, rather than through displays of power or demands for worship. Her influence grows not through domination, but through the grateful recognition of those whose lives have been enriched by her guidance, creating ever-expanding circles of wisdom, compassion, and service that reflect her own commitment to the highest good of all existence. As long as beings experience transition, uncertainty, and the need for guidance during life's most profound changes, the goddess of the crossroads will remain present, offering her torches to illuminate dark pathways and her keys to unlock doors that lead to new possibilities. Her eternal vigil ensures that no soul journeys alone through the mysteries of transformation, and her boundless compassion guarantees that love and wisdom will always be available to those who genuinely seek them. In the sacred darkness where all potentials await manifestation, Hécate continues her timeless work, forever faithful to her calling as guardian, guide, and teacher of the eternal dance of death and rebirth that transforms all existence into ever greater expressions of love, wisdom, and divine beauty. I hope this journey through the mystical realm of Hécate has gently guided you toward the peaceful embrace of sleep. May the triple goddess watch over you tonight, illuminating your dreams with her ancient wisdom and protective light. If you found comfort in this sacred tale, consider subscribing to discover more mythological stories that will cradle your nights with tranquility. You can now let this video continue playing in the background. The soothing music that follows will help you drift even deeper into restorative sleep. Allow yourself to sink completely into comfort and relaxation. Just as Hécate guides souls through their sacred transitions, let this gentle melody guide your passage into the most peaceful rest. Sweet dreams.